Hello, my friends. Katie Day with the Moving to Texas team in Houston, Texas, here with another episode of the Real Advice podcast. I am thrilled to welcome this week's guest, who is an absolute badass wife, mom, realtor, team leader, and community builder. She runs a team in Virginia with over 25 agents that they've sold over $1 billion since 2015, which I don't even know how to count to a billion. So we're definitely going to dig into that. When she's not running her team, she's building community, creating a nationwide women's group with over 32,000 members across the country. She's also a speaker, podcast host. She really just does all of the things. I'm excited to see where this episode goes today because I have so many things I know I want to ask, and I'm sure you will too. Please join me in welcoming Karen Cooper to Real Advice. What's going on, Karen?
Wow, Katie, that was like a really fun introduction. I love the energy, and I kind of think I feel tired after listening to all of those things.
You should feel tired from all of the things that it seems like you do in your life. So, for those that may not know you, who are you and how did you get into real estate?
Oh my gosh. So I am a mom. That's always what I kind of lead with. I am a mom and I am a real estate broker. I am a team leader. I am an investor. I am an entrepreneur. I started in real estate 21 years ago. And it was kind of like an accidental sort of thing, but not really. I was my then fiance, my fiance, who's now my husband, and we were buying a house for sale by owner. And, it was kind of like, I was like, oh my gosh, this is fun. This is so, I'm the one explaining the contract to people and, whatever. And so then I found out I was getting laid off, and I worked in the pharmaceutical industry. And this was like my second or third layoff. And, I'm like, well, I kind of think I need to do something else. And I was like, this real estate thing, this sounds fun. This sounds easy. I bet I can do this. And that is literally how it started. And I spent the first 6.5 years on a rainmaker team, like a really traditional rainmaker style team. It was kind of like the school of hard knocks, but I learned a ton. I did a ton of volume. I learned so many things, but I also left that team kind of like a secret agent. If you weren't in the industry, you didn't know me. And so I then was sort of kind of like reinventing and starting myself over. I worked as a solo agent, became a team leader about almost 8 years ago. So we're about to celebrate our 8-year anniversary. And it has been a very interesting ride.
And it sounds like it. And so, just out of curiosity, do you follow like disc profiles at all?
Yes.
What's your disc profile? You
So
personally?
it has changed multiple times over the years. So I am a high D. I
Uh-huh.
think right now I'm like a high D, and then I'm like a higher C. But if you look at because my business partner and I joke about this all the time. If you look at my profile, I'm actually like, it's not a huge difference between each of the four letters. Like, I'm actually sort of evenish.
You're saying you're just so well-rounded that
No, I think what it is I've learned to be adaptable.
okay.
And so, I think real estate has taught me that.
Well, and the reason why I'm asking, I was actually on a podcast the other day myself, right, being interviewed, and they were asking me if I thought that new agent advice would be to join a team, right? And most team leaders say that, and my advice was actually not that because I was like, I don't think everyone is meant to be on a team,
Correct.
right? And so it's interesting to me that you started on a team
Uh-huh.
and then left it, to go out on your own and then eventually start your own team. Would
Mhm.
you say that you would advise new agents to join a team, or what do you think on that front?
Yeah, so I very much agree with you. A team is not for everyone. A team is a great way to start, though, and so it is advice that I do give a lot of people who are newer agents. Is a team might be right for you, and I've actually done a podcast episode on this topic because for some people it's perfect. Like for me, I know that I ramped up so much faster
Yeah.
by being on this team and having the benefit of like volume coming at me, that I got up to speed super fast. And I think most agents, solo agents, don't get that opportunity because it takes time to build your business. So that's kind of my theory as far as that's concerned.
Yeah, for sure. Well, and I think just understanding your strengths and weaknesses is always helpful going into that, right? Some people don't do well with structure, don't do well with taking direction and things like that. And depending on the team you're on, right?
Yeah.
You may have more or less structure than others.
Uh-huh.
So for someone that's been in the business for a little while and maybe they're a solo agent and they're starting to get to that point that at least this was for me, that I had too much business, right? Things were falling through the cracks and I knew I needed to do something to better leverage my time.
Mhm.
What advice would you give to someone that's kind of at that point in their career and they're deciding on if they should start a team or not?
Uh-huh. So I was at that point. I was at that point about 12 years ago, 13 years ago. And what I did is I quit, and I don't recommend it. So I was at this point where I was so burned out and I had so much business coming at me that I couldn't handle it. And
Mhm.
so my choices were to build a team, but that seemed like, even though I had been on a team, I think in my mind at that time, I was very limited and I was thinking, okay, teams have to look this way. They have
Yeah.
to look like what I came from. And I didn't know how to build that. And there were parts of that that I didn't like I didn't
Mhm.
appreciate, and I didn't want to be a team leader in that environment, right? That type of model. Nothing wrong with it. It just wasn't for me.
Yeah.
And so I actually quit and took a managing broker position because I'm like, oh, this is going to be so easy. This is going to be the right. This is going to be the answer to my problems, and it was actually not the answer to my problems. So
Yeah.
if you are that person who's feeling that, I think the what I would suggest to you is to be open to opportunities that are around you. And it doesn't mean that you have to go from, okay, I'm solo agent and now suddenly I'm going to have like this giant team. It might be, okay, maybe I start by partnering with with an agent in my office for a couple of transactions and feel that out a little bit and see how that works for you and see what you learn from that experience. And then it can kind of evolve. My team didn't start, there's like 28 of us right now. At one point we were like 42. Like, we didn't start there. We started like much smaller. So you got to start small and then you sort of find what works and you tweak along the way.
What are some things that you would do if you could redo it again to better leverage your time back then when you were feeling burnt out and all that?
And I would have had the confidence to invest more in an assistant,
Yep.
and I would have let go of control a lot sooner. I tend to be I say that I am a recovering control freak, which I think a lot of us in this business, especially if you've been successful, have that trait. And so I struggled when I hired my first assistant. It was part time. I was doing 50 to 60 deals a year. I had three tiny kids. My husband was working shift work, and I hired her for like 10 hours a week. And I legit gave her nothing to do for 3 months. Like, she will, if you called her right now, she would tell you, yes, she paid me and she gave me nothing to do.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's what I would have done. I would have figured out how to let go and how to really leverage that help.
Well, and everyone always says, "No one does it as good as I do," right?
Yes. Yes.
It's also
Lies.
yeah, it's also one of those things too that it it is going to get harder before it gets easier. When you're training someone new, I always recommend doing the screen record, having the recordings for them to go back and rewatch and take notes on and things like that. But me going over something with you is going to take longer than me just doing it myself, right? But I need to free up that time for my future me
That's it.
to be able to, do other things, do higher dollar productive activities.
Absolutely. It's always harder first.
Yeah. All right, so switching gears a little bit from the team aspect, and kind of leaning into the community building.
Mhm.
So, what was your idea behind starting your group?
So I started Empowering Women in Real Estate 9 years ago, and it's because I was lonely. So I was in that managing broker position at the time, and it was a very interesting dynamic because my friends that I was with in that office, they're busy, they're kind of doing their own thing, and I'm over here being the managing broker, and so people didn't want to talk to me. Like, the agents in my office, if they were talking to me, that meant there was a problem. So
Mhm.
they were usually coming to me, and there was like no shortage of that. But other agents outside of the brokerage didn't really want to talk to me because they were afraid I was just going to try to recruit them. And that is so anti my personality that, like, so I was very lonely, and I was thinking to myself, and I had this idea one morning in the shower. I'm like, gosh, if I feel like this, I know that there are other women in this industry that feel this way too. And that is how the group started. And it started out just, I joke that it was my therapy for many, many years. Like, I would get up every morning and like 5:30 in the morning, and I am writing like a story every day. And I realized very quickly how I can't tell you the number of times that I would write something, share something, say something, and I would get messages, I would, get comments and other women saying, "Oh my gosh, like me too. I thought I was the only one. I thought I was the only
Yeah.
one that felt this way. I thought I was the only one that experienced this." And so I realized very quickly the value of having a community. And so we've just kind of grown from there. We started out just a very localized group here in Northern Virginia. Now we have over 33,000 women all across the country, Canada. Um, we have a podcast. We have a coaching program. We have monthly meetups that meet in 50 some cities. We do an annual conference. So it's really become a really amazing thing. Building community is one of my favorite things.
So along those lines with the podcast and the community and all that, you I think you've done over 200 episodes of your podcast, right?
Yes.
And so what are maybe like the top 3 common themes? I from the episodes I've seen and the episodes I've listened to, it's like, you talk to team leaders, you talk to executives, you talk to,
Mhm.
you talk like you have lots of different topics.
Yes.
So what would you say are like maybe the 3 biggest pieces, like parallels between episodes, right?
Mhm.
From people that like the 3 biggest pieces of advice that you could give to an agent today?
Totally. So I take all my inspiration from the group and the questions that I see the women ask in the group.
Mhm.
And there are definitely some common themes. One of them is about time management and like balance and boundaries, right? A lot of the women in the group are moms. You're a mom, I'm a mom. And it adds a whole nother layer of complexity to what we do in our real estate business. And that's a huge one that I see women talk about. So if you go back through our, I think today was like episode 248. Many episodes are surrounding balance, time management, boundaries, that sort of thing. The other thing that I hear most frequently, question that gets asked is generating leads. How do I generate
Mhm.
leads? Should I buy leads? Where do I get, where do I get my leads from? So we have a lot. I have some very specific philosophies about that, and so we have a ton of topics that are about that. And then I would say the third one is just about growth. It's a variety of different topics. Like the new agent is trying to figure out how they can stop being the Pop Tart and just running out the door and running anywhere when someone calls, and how they
Yeah.
can like niche down. And then the more experienced agent, like you and I started this conversation, is trying to figure out how can I leverage and build a team. And,
Mhm.
those are kind of the main things I hear over and over again.
Well, and so let's get tactical on that. So time management, it's something that, and you just brought up a really good point too on the new agent popping up to show a house whenever they get asked. And I've always told agents, that when you look at your schedule and someone says, "I want to see a house this afternoon," you can say you have an appointment this afternoon, but you can show them at X time or Y time. They don't
Yes.
need to know that it's a nail appointment, or they don't need to know that it's shooting a podcast, or they don't need to know that you just need some time off, right?
Yeah.
You're busy at that time. When else can I show you? What are some tactical things that you help people with to better manage their time, or help your team members to better manage their time?
Yeah. So it's a couple things. The example that you just gave is something that I say over and over again. In fact, my business partner Vicky, we joke all the time when we would share an office and I would hear her on the phone with people and I would hear her say, "When do you want to meet?" And I'm over here and I'm kicking her chair and I'm like, "No, that's not what you say." So that's a big one. Like we're professionals, right? Treat yourself like a professional. Honor your schedule like a professional. And so that's a big one. Another one is setting expectations, and I think we're afraid to do this in our business because we are afraid that if our value is not in our availability. And I think a lot of people, especially if you're a newer agent or you haven't had a ton of success yet, it's we get confused and we think that, okay, well, that is the only value that I can bring, is that I'm just going to run out the door, or that I'm going to answer the
Yeah.
phone at 11 o'clock at night, or text you at 6 a.m. So having some kind of boundaries and setting expectations around that is key, is critical. So for me, something that I have often done is I would maybe get that call from that. I'm an early to bed person. I don't know about you, but I'm like,
I
I'm
am
in
too.
bed at like 9:15. And so, if that I get that client call at like 8 p.m., well, I'm like winding down for the night, right? Maybe I'm getting the kids settled or whatever. And so what I would always do is I would then reach out to my clients. I would send a quick text and say, "Hey, I noticed I missed your call. I'm winding down for the evening. Is there something urgent that I can help you with? Or is it okay if I call you first thing in the morning?" And I don't think I ever had anybody say, oh, it's actually really urgent. I have to talk to you right now. And then I would just call them back in the morning, and then they would never do it again, right? Because now I've set the expectation that this is an appropriate time to communicate with me. But the converse is true. And that's the mistake that a lot of us make. When you respond to that text message at 11 p.m. because you happen to see it on your phone and you happen to be awake, well, now you've just taught them that 11 p.m. is a great time to reach you because you're not busy. And so
Yeah.
we perpetuate, right, that cycle. And then the third thing that I will say is understanding your priorities and
Mhm.
understanding what is most important to you. And those priorities will ebb and flow over time. And for me, I'm at a phase right now in my life. My kids are older. For me, I don't want to miss their sports games, and that is
Yeah.
something that I prioritize. Right, so that's that big block in the calendar. And if there's a game, I'm not scheduling an appointment. And I might tell someone I have an appointment, I can't meet right now. They don't need to know what that appointment is. But understanding what's important to you so that you can fit those priorities, those things around your priorities.
I remember one of the first coaches that I had told us that we needed to do date night on Friday nights.
Uh-huh.
And after our first coaching call, we're like, yeah, 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 Karen, we got it. Understood. Thanks. Thanks. Appreciate the insight. Right. And the next coaching call we hopped on and she's like, all right, so how was date night? And we both kind of, avoid eye contact. She's like, you guys didn't do it, did you? And she just ended the call. And we're like, what the hell? And she was like, if you're not going to honor your personal life, like you honor your work life, like what's the point in doing all of this? We're like,
So true.
well, all right then, so
Well,
um
what a great lesson.
so many people get into this industry for the flexibility or to create a better future for their family or whatever it may be. But it's like if you're not actually spending time with them, then what's the point?
That's the point. Yeah, that's the point.
And I really like your point of like our value is not in our availability and just keeping that kind of forefront in your mind.
Yeah.
Um, you mentioned leads coming up a lot. I feel very strongly about, lead generation and things like that. Where do your leads come from, or what are kind of your lead pillars for the team? What does that look like?
Yeah. So for us, our team is very different in that we don't the value that we bring to our team members is not leads. We teach our team members how to fish and how to develop and build out their own pillars. And we have
Mhm.
marketing plans where we help them to do that. For me personally, what my pillars are, I'm not in production anymore. I haven't been in personal production for almost 4 years, but I still prospect every single week. And I still generate a ton of volume, probably a good 20 to 25 million in sales volume every year that flows through my team. And my pillars are my past clients, right? I've
Yeah.
been in business 21 years. I've helped hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of clients. So my past clients, referrals from those past clients are my sphere. Agent to agent referrals is a
Yeah.
big pillar for me. Geographic farming is a big pillar for me. It's a huge pillar. And social media is a big pillar for me. And so those are the areas where I tend to put the majority of my effort.
And so for your team and where their business is coming from, is
Mhm.
their business also mainly organic?
Yes.
Yeah, that's
So
awesome.
yeah, we teach them how to do business by referral. I don't think there's anyone on our team that buys leads. Not that there's anything wrong with buying leads, it's just
Yeah.
not our model, right? But I would say for my team members, that is definitely a big pillar. We have a lot of folks also that do geographic farming.
Yeah.
We have several folks for whom open houses are a big pillar for
Mhm.
them. So those are kind of the things that we focus on.
Well, and leaning in on the people that already know you and like you and potentially trust you is always going to be a way higher conversion than a paid lead or PPC or Zillow or whatever it may be.
100%. I mean, without a doubt, we track what our conversion rate is for the leads that we give to our team members,
Mhm.
and you know, and some of those leads are maybe leads that come in on our team listings or things like that. But our conversion rate is sometimes in like the 15 to 20% conversion
Yeah.
rate overall, looking at big picture. Whereas online leads, you're lucky if you can close 1 out of 100.
Yeah.
And so it's just to me, it's just a kinder, gentler way of doing business. And it works. It just takes time. And unfortunately, not everybody wants to invest the time.
Yeah. Yeah. So getting out of production, do you feel like you got out of production at the right time? Or do you think it maybe was too early? Or do you
Yeah.
think it was too late? Like what do you think about the timing of when you got out of production?
Yeah. Man, nobody's ever asked me that question. I I don't know that the timing was bad. Um, I had gotten out of production before when I was a managing broker because I had to.
Yep. Yep.
And I learned, and then I went back into production, and I actually learned an extremely valuable lesson from that experience. And the lesson was you have to like double, triple down when you are not in personal production anymore. You have to double, triple down on your marketing and your prospecting to keep the flow, right?
Yep.
Because when I stopped, like I essentially stopped. And so those leads stopped coming in. And so now stepping out of production from the outside, it doesn't look like I'm not in production
Yep.
because it still signs with my name and I'm still marketing and I'm still sending the postcard. So from a timing perspective for me, it was a need to, because our team had grown to such a point. You know, we had all of these agents that were really relying on us as team leaders to, you know, provide services to them and mentorship and coaching and value. And we had so much happening in terms of not just an agent count and a number of people on our team, but also just in terms of like the volume of business that we were closing every year.
Yeah.
It made sense that one of us needed to step out of production to focus on the team. And so it made sense for it to be me. And you know, I don't regret that at all.
Yeah, I just find that a lot of team leaders find that they came out too soon, and a lot of times they have to then go back into production,
Uh-huh.
right? Because what most people don't think about is that, depending on what your splits are, your team members normally have to do 2 to 3 deals to replace what the commission would have been if you would have just done it yourself, right? And so
Exactly.
they think, okay, if I sold 30 homes last year and my team sells 30 homes, then that'll be fine, but you really need them to sell 60 or 90 homes for
Right.
that,
Yep.
same amount of profit to be there. So
Yep.
I'm
For sure.
always curious because I've definitely scaled down both my amount of transactions that I do each year as well as the percentage of my transactions versus the team.
Yep.
But I don't think I'll ever 100% be out of production. So for me, out of production would probably be 20 to 30 homes a year kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
My business partner is like you. I mean, like it's
yeah,
and it's not for everybody. For me, like it feels good and it makes sense. But
yeah,
her, yeah, she's kind of scaled back what she does, and she's a lot more nichey now in terms of where she works and what price point. But it, you know, it doesn't make sense for everybody. Team profitability. I think this is a giant misconception that people have when it comes to teams. They think that you're just raking it in, right? And don't they? And we're just sitting back and we're just raking it in. It's a huge misconception because profit margins with teams can be a big challenge. You know, especially in our markets, especially the way the industry has changed.
yeah,
You know, in the beginning, when the team that I was on when I started, my split was 19%. 19% is what I received. It like nothing, like a little pittance is what I received. And I was thrilled and grateful for it. But if I went to try to hire an agent right now and said, hey, I'm going to give you 19% and I'm going to keep the rest, like there's no way that would work. And so, and so it's just all kind of about prioritizing and understanding what you want your team to look like. Our team is very different. We have a lot of producers, high producers, and
yeah.
our agents average like 9 years of experience. It's a very kind of different dynamic. Um, so yeah.
I'm just curious when they were paying you 19%
Uh-huh.
per transaction there, that was your split.
Uh-huh.
What was their split with the brokerage? Was it
She
like a 50-50?
she had her own, she opened her own franchise.
Okay.
She opened her
Okay.
own Remax franchise. I think at the time you had to have, it couldn't be a standalone team. So she had like two like independent agents that worked there.
Yeah.
But the rest was her team. So she, I mean, I'm sure she paid something, right, to Remax. I don't know what.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I just know that at one point in time, my brother had his license in, I think, Maryland and Virginia, maybe. I'm
Okay.
not sure which states he had it, but like, oh, the splits were a lot different than they are today, right? So
Yeah.
when he had his license back, 05, 08 timeframe, like the splits were a lot different for the brick and mortars, than all the tech brokerages and cloud-based brokers and stuff now.
Yeah.
The commission compression on the brokers has changed significantly. So anyways, I'm going off on a little tangent just because I'm curious, but we'll get back on track here.
That's right. Well, but it is fascinating. I mean, I think anybody who's been around the business for a while, like to see how it's changed and how it's
Yeah.
evolved. I mean, you know, you and I are both at Real, and you know, that's a whole nother, you know, that can be a whole nother conversation about the way the brokerage models have changed. It's really kind of fascinating to see how everything has shifted over the last, you know, for me, 21 years.
Well, and I think that the pandemic definitely accelerated a lot of that change,
Oh yeah.
as far as the reliance on your office, your brokerage office and things like that. Like, I mean, I'm sitting in my office right now. We have an office. I like going somewhere to work. So when agents say that they, don't want to leave a brokerage because they love their office, I completely understand that. But I think, with the pandemic and I mean, we're talking over, over the interwebs right now. The reliance on Zoom and technology has so significantly increased, over the past three years for sure.
For sure. Absolutely.
All right. So you said that the things that people talk about or ask about the most are time management, leads and business generation, and then growth. And how do I get further from where I am today? And so I find a lot of agents that I talk to feel as if they've reached a plateau, right? Hey, I've sold this many homes every single year and I just can't push past that.
Yeah.
Right. My team has sold this many homes and we just keep selling this many homes, even though we're adding more agents or whatever it may look like. Right. What would be your advice to that maybe solo agent that is at that plateau, right?
Yeah.
They can't seem to push past that. They're selling their 20 homes per year and they can't get to 25 or 30.
Yeah. So there very much is this plateau, and we've experienced it. I know a couple years ago we experienced it with our team, and you have to almost take a step back in a little bit, because what's happening is you're having to rebuild your foundation to prepare for the next level, and you're never going to be able to do that unless you can kind of like some things are going to have to change, and sometimes we can't see that on our own, and you have to whether it's a friend or a colleague or a trusted mentor, like you need to kind of talk through this because not more than likely, I pretty much guarantee you that something is going to have to change.
Yeah.
Whether it is your systems need to evolve in such a way to allow more production to happen, maybe it's pulling some more things, more responsibility off of yourself so that you can focus on more of that lead generation or focus more on maybe client service to bring in more business. Or is it that you need a different environment to operate in? Is it time for you to make a brokerage change? Is it time for you to there's a million different things, and generally it's a rebuilding of your foundation time, and that might mean a little bit of a scale back so that you can then kind of move forward.
I think that's something too, especially right now in the real estate market we're in, coming off of, you know, 2020 and 2021 being two of the busiest years we've ever seen in real estate.
Yeah.
Then last year was really busy until it wasn't,
Yes.
right? I think a lot of people are having those moments right now. So I think this is a very timely kind of message,
Hmm.
because it's definitely a time to kind of think about, is what we're doing right now working, or what do we need to do different?
Yes, exactly. And not only that, but like the thing is a lot of agents got into the business in these last couple of years. And so
Yeah.
they don't know what a normal market is like. This was a normal market for them. And
Yeah.
so, I remember like not long ago, like 2 months ago or 3 months ago, one of my team members like called me and she's like, I don't know how to my clients are asking me about a broker's open. What's a broker's open? Right? And it's like because you don't know, because things have really changed
Yeah.
to such a degree. And so yeah, I mean it's a strange world out there right now, that's for sure.
So in Virginia, are y'all seeing kind of what we're seeing here in Texas right now is kind of like two markets, right? We're seeing the homes that hit the market are still getting multiple offers and are flying off the shelves at all price points, right?
Mhm.
Certainly under, 300K flying, but like even some of the higher priced properties, we're seeing that. And then some we're seeing sit a little bit longer, right? And so those are kind of the two worlds we're living in right now. Are
Yeah.
y'all seeing that as well?
We are, and Lord help you if you have one of those sellers that has a listing that sits because they don't understand why they're sitting and the others aren't. Our market, we are about an hour-ish outside of Washington, D.C., and our market has just the prices here have skyrocketed, and our average sales price right now is about 700,000. And I mean, it's hard to find a single family under a million. I mean, it's
Yeah.
like it's insane.
So you're like,
Um,
we don't have any $300,000 or less properties.
no,
We have
no,
those in Texas. Move to Texas, y'all.
I know because seriously, it is crazy. But even like those million, like 1.2, 1.3, 1.5, 20 offers. Like,
Yeah.
it's an interesting market. So the thing is, you have to be prepared. Like as agents, we have to educate ourselves as much as possible
Yeah.
with what's happening in the market and not live in the bubble of this is just my experience, but what are my colleagues experiencing? What else
Yeah.
is happening in my MLS? What else is happening in my local market? Because this is all data that you're going to need so that then you're not shocked when you have that seller. The thing I tell the agents on my team right now is, pricing can be a challenge, right? Trying to figure out
Mhm.
the right price. You can't underprice a property right now, in my opinion. Like if you're better to come in under, but you can absolutely overprice, because if
Yeah.
you overprice, it is going to sit. And then that is a major losing proposition for your client.
Yeah. I would agree. It's definitely been an interesting few months so far this year.
Yes.
Okay. I've got a question for you. It's hard hitting, so if you need some time,
Okay.
I understand. But Karen, if it were your last meal on earth, what would you be eating?
So there is this grilled pizza that my husband makes. It's a recipe that I found like 15 years ago in a Wegmans. Do you guys have Wegmans grocery stores there?
We don't, but I'm familiar with the
Okay,
the
so
chain.
so they had this like little booklet that came out, and they had this recipe, and it's like a homemade pizza that you make on a naan bread, and it has bruschetta on it, and instead of like sauce, it's like you spread the base as like this artichoke something dip, and it's got grilled chicken on it, and it's got spinach on it, and it is so good. And it's the meal that I request every year for my Mother's Day meal, and also for my birthday.
Okay. When's your birthday?
June 4th. I will be turning 50 on June.
Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you.
So that's a very well, the ingredients and everything, like I feel like tomatoes are a summertime-ish
Mhm.
food, right?
Yeah,
And, so May and June, that's a good,
it's perfect.
time of year for that.
Eat on the patio, glass of
Yeah.
wine. It's perfect.
Love it. Love it. Cool. Well, Karen, if someone doesn't already follow you, where would be the best place for them to connect with you online?
So I love Instagram. I am Karen.w.cooper on Instagram is my absolute favorite. And of course, if you are a woman in real estate and you are not already a part of our Empowering Women in Real Estate group on Facebook, I would love to connect with you over there.
Awesome. Cool. Well, Karen, thank you so much for your time today and all of your knowledge. You are the greatest, and I appreciate it.
Well, you're so sweet. Thank you so much, Katie. I appreciate it.